Hello again.
Hi.
In the videos series that you may have seen already, 8 Reasons Why We Were Disfellowshipped, we took up in issue number 7 this one, that by taking promises made to fleshly Israel, we cancel for ourselves the hope of Christians in the Greek scriptures. So we thought we would amplify that thought with the paradise portions of scripture. We didn't really identify the main texts in either in that series or in the Hope series that Vivian has just completed. We didn't identify the main text the Watchtower appropriates for its use in reference to a spiritual paradise today or a physical paradise in the future. So we thought we would lay those texts before you and show some of the problems inherent in using those specific texts as the Watchtower uses them. So we'll start by reading the relevant paragraphs in the letter that we sent to the Watchtower, which is the immediate reason we were disfellowshipped.
Right. Now, we have to remember that David wrote the letter.
Mm-hmm.
In response to this charge, Vivian and I have taken time to review the texts commonly used to buttress the doctrine of a spiritual paradise today and a future literal paradise earth. And in so doing, we discovered that virtually all of them contain references we never really paid attention to before. References that involve a restoration of the land of Israel. Such passages include Psalm 72, Isaiah chapters 2, 11, 25, 35, and 65, and Micah 4, and many others, quoted on pages 183 to 190 in our letter. Researching the works of C.T. Russell and J.F. Rutherford, one cannot help but be struck by their insistence, till 1929, that the prophet's promises cannot be interpreted other than literally. Cynical observers suggest that the only reason Rutherford changed his mind on this matter was that his innovative two-tier Christianity needed scriptural support, which support could only be had by stealing Israel's promises and handing them to the great crowd.
So we'll start with a couple of familiar Psalms to people who have been in the field service work for Jehovah's Witnesses. Psalm 72, 83, and 102. 83 being the most familiar, and you'll know why in a minute. 72 used a little bit less, but usually in reference to the spiritual paradise and God's hope for the nations ultimately in the millennium. And 102, somewhat less familiar, but very useful if you're going to dialogue with Jehovah's Witnesses about the coming kingdom on earth. So we'll read first Psalm 72.
Yes, we're reading verses 7, 8, 10, and 16 to 20. In his days the righteous one will sprout, and the abundance of peace until the moon is no more. And he will have subjects from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth. The kings of Tarshish and of the islands, tribute they will pay. The kings of Sheba and Seba, a gift they will present. There will come to be plenty of grain on the earth. On the top of the mountains there will be an overflow. His fruit will be as in Lebanon, and those who are from the city will blossom like the vegetation of the earth. Let his name prove to be to time indefinite. Before the sun, let his name have increase, and by means of him let them bless themselves. Let all nations pronounce him happy. Blessed be Jehovah God, Israel's God, who alone is doing wonderful works. And blessed be his glorious name to time indefinite, and let his glory fill the whole earth. Amen and amen. The prayers of David, the son of Jesse, have come to their end.
So we note first about Psalm 72 that even in the New World Translation, it's headed regarding Solomon. Most translations say it's of Solomon or about Solomon. So it's one of only 2 psalms in the collection of psalms that has Solomon's name in the superscription. So you can see the immediate context is it's part of the prayers of David as it concludes, is the immediate application to Israel's hope back in the 9th or 10th century BC.
David thinking about a literal kingdom of being ruled by his son.
By his son on a throne in Jerusalem, which ultimately will bless all peoples of the earth. Now, you can see why the Watchtower would want to use this text, because it refers to physical prosperity all over the earth. The grain, for instance, and the beauties of the new earth. But even in their translation, there's a major problem. And better than even in most Bibles today, it says that Jehovah is Israel's God. Now, I guess the question then becomes, do they really believe what they're reading when they read it and use it? Because the God of Israel, or Israel's God, implies that has not changed. And the essential reason that these things will be fulfilled is because God's faithfulness to Israel is forever. That's obviously a very strong theme of all the Psalms, that God's praise will be forever. God's name will be magnified because he will prove himself to be God of Israel forever.
Yeah. We also noted that there are a lot of specific geographical and people references within the text that we read.
Yes. And we'll see even more of those in the next segment, Psalm 83. Now, some of you will recognize immediately, as soon as I say Psalm 83, you have used this text at the door. Yeah. Let's just read a brief portion of it here, and we'll familiarize ourselves with it.
We're going to read verses 3 to 5 and verses 16 to 18. Against your people they cunningly carry on their confidential talk, and they conspire against your concealed ones. They have said, "Come and let us efface them from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more." For with the heart they have unitedly exchanged counsel. Against you they proceeded to conclude even a covenant. Fill their faces with dishonor, that people may search for your name, O Jehovah. Oh, may they be ashamed and be disturbed for all times, and may they become abashed and perish, that people may know that you, whose name is Jehovah, you alone are the Most High over all the earth.
I think we all remember why we use this. Why was this one of our favorite proof texts? Because it's one of 4 times in the King James Bible that this name Jehovah occurs in the English text.
Well, so, I would have to admit, I only used verse 18.
You only use 18, so well, probably we all did. But the problems in the context are multiple, and the biggest one of all, it seems to me, is that if you read the psalm from the beginning, you realize that what the scenario is here is that apparently the nations around Israel are forming a conspiracy to, what does it say?
Wipe them out.
To wipe them out. Israel out.
Efface them from being a nation.
So that the name of Israel may be remembered no more. And of course, then the name of Jehovah comes in. If Jehovah allows that to happen, then of course his name is eternally besmirched.
Right.
So
it's about his providential protection of his people.
Of his people on earth.
That's how they're going to know.
And if you actually read the entire psalm, you realize there's no fewer than 16 place names, specific names of specific neighbors of Israel that existed throughout the entire period that the psalms were being written.
And then there's event references too.
Event references, yeah.
In the history of Israel as a nation.
So only by defying the context could you possibly understand that somehow this applies to your people today, and somehow you are vindicating Jehovah's name. You are part of the spiritual paradise, and you're letting people know that the only name that is worth preserving among the gods is this name Jehovah, which you have totally dissociated from its original historical context. And it's the prediction of God's name being permanently attached to a people.
It's like they're missing completely the point.
Yeah. So in the next segment, we'll talk about Psalm 102.